Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to Project 3, the budget. This might be the most important of the projects for this class, primarily because we've been talking hypothetically. Tell me about the business, and hey, let's do some market research, and let's try to understand who the potential target market is, etc. And this is the project that's kind of like, okay, does this thing make money or not, right? And which is why I think it's so important. So let's take a look. First, this is an Excel file that you're going to download. If you don't have Excel, don't worry about it. Download the file, and then you can import it pretty easily into Google Sheets. Or if you're a Mac person, you can use Numbers. If you know how to do that, don't worry about it. Go on YouTube. There are a ton of YouTube videos that will describe how to do it. Pretty easy. Um, Regardless of the software you use, it's important to note that there are a number of tabs here at the bottom that I'm clicking. You see my mouse right here. I am clicking all of these tabs. So the first tab we're going to start, and I'm just going to get into it. The first tab is startup costs. Literally, what do you need in order to get the doors open? And in some cases, depending on the type of business that you're doing, you might need to have licensing costs or whatever, right? And so, or you need, I'm gonna use it as an example of daycare because I have a lot of students that do daycare. We have a certificate with the Early Childhood Development Group, and so I'm going to do that. So the first thing, or the second thing, I'm not sure what things we're on now. If it's in a box, you could change it. So you'll notice here these numbers and these things are blue, right? The text. You're going to get to other areas. Same thing. These are all in a box. Whenever there's a box, that's data that you can fill. You notice when we get here, these are boxes you can fill, right? And then there's box stuff where you're not supposed to be filling in data. So if it's blue and it's in a box, it's for you. If it's not blue and it's not in a box, don't touch it because it means it's already wired up and it's set to roll over to other areas. So because this is blue, let's start here. We're going to open a daycare center. So maybe we're going to need games, right? And because kids, you got to keep them busy. So maybe $500 in games, and maybe you have some older kids. Maybe let's spend $1,000 because we might need to get like a PlayStation or whatever. And we're going to need nap stuff. Maybe you're gonna little pads for the floor. I don't know. I've never done daycare, so I'm making stuff up as I go along. And then maybe we're gonna need some food. Maybe we're gonna need some fruit roll-ups or whatever, right? But we need this stuff to get started, right? And then we need licensing. And maybe the licensing is like $1,500. It might be more than that. I don't know. This is your company, so I'm assuming you're gonna have some general idea what it's gonna take to sort of get the doors open, the lights open. Maybe you're gonna need some electronics. Maybe you need a TV, a couple TVs, and you're gonna need other things. You need miscellaneous furniture. I don't even know if that's how you spell that. Actually, I'm pretty sure that is not how you spell it. Furniture. There we go. Hey, entrepreneurship class, not English. So let's go with $2,500 for the furniture, and let's put some other miscellaneous stuff, right? And maybe we're gonna need another $5,000 for that stuff, and then we're gonna need legal and accounting. And let's put that down for another $5,000. I don't know. You're going to have startup costs. The key is that you need to sit and think about it. What would I need in order to get the doors open? Next, we start moving to the volume estimator. Probably looks a little familiar. It's a little different because this one's wired up. And what I mean by that is that you will enter the data here and it will flow through the rest of the document. So let's say, for example, we are doing a daycare, and maybe we have, do we have one type of kid, or do we, what type of, do parents just drop them off at 6 o'clock and pick them up at 6? I don't know. If you do, then what you could do is just use the 24-hour link, right? You could just say 24 hours, And then every Friday, this is where you would be. I would put, you're going to have 12 kids, and in your daycare center that are going to be there for random hours within a 24-hour period. Okay. Um, and what it'll automatically do is it'll break down, okay, you got 12 weekly orders and you got 51, it'll round up 52 kids a month is what you would have. So 52 units of sales is how it would work out. If you do have other kids, and let's say, for example, you've got a late night business where the parent does drop them off at 12 o'clock, at 6 o'clock at night, picks them up at 12 o'clock, right? Maybe you got four of those. And maybe you've got some that are overnight. You got four more of those that are overnight. And so you can plug those in here. And once again, it's just going to break it down and tell you how many units of you have. So if you are a clothing store, which is why I built this so the way I did, or you're running a bar, well, let's go with the clothing store. I say the clothing store opens, or it's a shoe store, and it's an actual physical location. You got to say the store's going to open Monday, and between the hours of 12 and 6, I'm going to sell 15 pairs of shoes. Maybe I sell 15 pairs of shoes Monday through Thursday, and then Friday people get paid, so maybe I sell 25 pairs of shoes. Saturday people want to go get fancy, so I'm going to sell 30 pairs of shoes. Sunday people going to church, they're not going to go buy shoes, but maybe you're going to sell 10, right? And then, maybe you're not 6 to 12, but maybe you're 6 to 9. So maybe your store is open from 12 to 9. So maybe you're going to sell another 5, right? For the remainder. You don't need the hours to be perfect. And, or maybe you close at 6 on Sunday. That is how you would do this, is that you would just go in and plug it in. So maybe this is, shoes, and maybe you sell shirts, or you sell pants. If you're an online store, so let's say you've got an online store. Let's remove all of these, and I'll just delete. All right, so let's say you're an online store. All right, well, you're still going to have to break out how many do you think you're going to sell on a given day, which is where you could use the 24-hour line. So let's say you're going to sell online, and you think you're going to sell Jordans, right? And you think that you're going to sell 15 pairs every day of the week, right? You've just got good supply, you've got good marketing, and you're going to sell 15 pairs. And so let's say these are Jordans, and then maybe you got some Yeezys, right? You're going to do 10 pairs of Yeezys. I don't care what they are. The difference is pricing, right? So maybe these are going to be priced at $150. These are priced at $200. I don't know. It's really up to you. The key is that we need a mechanism to capture monthly orders, because when we go to income variables, you'll notice that these numbers are now filled in, and I'll get to that in a minute. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to delete these, and I'm going to say, let's go back to the daycare model, because that's what we've got our startup set to do. So daycare, we're going to go with, I've got 12 kids here, and maybe I've got 4 kids that are, the 6 to 12, and I do an overnight, and I've got another 4 kids that essentially come over and they go to sleep, right? And so you'll come over to income variables, and you'll see that these things are full, right? And which is good, because we want it to be full. And so it tells you this is what we got here. So now we got to go up and work on pricing. So let's say, actually, let's do this. Let's go here. Instead of putting that there, let's put it down here, because it's going to be a third product with a different price, right? The overnight is a different price. So let's go up and say, for the regular kids, they mom and pop drop them off for 8, 10, 12 hours. You're going to charge $550 a month. For the kids that get dropped off from, say, 6 to 12, you got to feed them, right? They're not with you as many hours, but you got to feed them. So maybe it's $500 a month. And the overnight kids, maybe that's $650 a month, even though they're just going to be going to sleep. I don't care what your prices are. But you should know what your prices are based on you doing your competitive analysis and such. So now cost of goods. If I am a daycare center, I'm not going to have cost of goods, okay? Because you're a service. But if I'm going to do shirts or shoes, so let's say, for example, remember the unit price was for the Jordans. I'm going to sell them for $200. That's my revenue. But when I go buy them, maybe I buy them for $120. Okay, guy comes in, they want to consign, or they want to like I just want to sell my shoes. You give them $120 for it, and then we've got a pair of Yeezys, and we're going to sell those for $250. If you can sell them for $250, let me know, because I've got like 3 pairs that my boys convinced me to buy and said they'd be worth money someday. They've not been worth money someday. So let's assume you're going to pay $100 for the Yeezys, and then go up here and let's say we've just got some a nice pair of Adidas, right? Adidas, the retros are pretty popular, and those cost me $80. What's important is that you understand what your cost is. Whether if you're going to be selling shoes, you need to understand what the cost of the actual shoe is, right? So when you pay the person, if they ship them to you, they charge you shipping, that's part of your cost of goods. If it's a shirt or underwear, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're going to go back and we're going to do let's plug back in our daycare variables, right? I don't even remember what the numbers were, but we're going to go with those being the numbers. Now we get here, you're going to notice these are in a box, but there's numbers there. So let's assume month one is January. Month one is pulling from the volume estimator. But let's say, for example, you know what? We take August off, or maybe we take July off. July, I don't work. So you come over and you can zero it out and just say, nope, we are closed. And maybe you come over here and you say, you know what? I am going to work in December, but man, I am not going to be taking those midnight kids. Those midnight kids, you're going to have to figure something else out. This allows you to go in and adjust for seasonality. Same thing on shoes. Maybe you're going to be like, yeah, maybe that's what I would sell during a normal January, February, whatever. But October, which would be month 10, man, volume's going to be much higher because Christmas is coming and we like to spend money as Americans, regardless. Okay. This is how you go in and plug it in. So you could change it or just leave it alone. Now, you have the option of working on years 2 and 3. So let's say, for example, right now I've got it, I had it increasing by 10, but I'm going to put it at 0. When you get it, it's going to read 0. So if you leave it at 0, it's going to just say you do the same exact sales volume next year that you will this year, right? Well, hopefully you're thinking, I'm going to grow. Maybe you're going to grow by 10%. It's going to take all of these numbers and just grow it by 10%. Maybe then a year after that, you're going to grow by 15%. This is optional. You don't have to do this. You can just leave it at 0 and do nothing, right? But this begins to sort of reveal to you how much volume you're going to be doing. And, so you're going to have here, you're going to have roughly, 86 kids a month, or 86 kid units a month, right? And so you can begin thinking about that. And the volume estimator, it'll show you how many weekly, right? You're gonna have 12 kids here, 4 kids here, 4 kids here. But the reason I want you to sort of understand that is that when we get to wages, now we got to start figuring out how many people do I think I'm going to need. So by law, I think in the healthcare you can do what? Not healthcare, child, the child development stuff. I don't know what the rule is. I don't know if it's 8 per person or whatever, but maybe you're going to need 1 person. What are you going to pay that person? And so you want to use this in order to calculate a wage. So you're going to pay that person $15 an hour. They're not going to be there the whole time. Maybe they're just going to be there for 6 hours a day. And so 6 hours per week. So we want 6 hours a day. That'd be 30 hours. So you're going to pay them, call it $2,000. So maybe you're going to pay yourself $4,000 a month. You're going to pay them $2,000 a month to help you part-time, right? And then you got to do this all the way across the board. Just type the numbers in. And I'm just going to cheat a little. If you know how to do cheating, you can do this too. Let's just drag it over here. 4,000. 2,000. Okay. So you'll note it's starting to do the same thing. It'll autofill down here. So I'm assuming everybody's going to want to raise. I'm assuming 10% is going to be adequate. So you're going to give a 10% raise this year, 10% raise this year. That way you've got 3 years worth of data. I put this here so that you can begin thinking about what the positions might be. You don't have to fill it in, but it's helpful for you, or you could just fill it in here. Totally up to you. Now we get to operating expense. I want you to note that the revenue numbers that we had calculated back there automatically flow over here. Gross profit. So in accounting, it is revenue, which you've got here, minus cost of goods, which is the cost associated with making your thing, equals what's called gross profit. Gross profit is what we actually have to run the business. So let me go back here, and let's say now, let me go back and plug in the $200 for shoes, $250 for shoes, and $300 for shoes. And now let's just say that the shoes are going to cost me $100, $125, and $200, right? When we put those numbers in and we go back to operating expense, we don't change wages, we just change operating expense. Now you're going to see the sheet automatically fills in your cost of goods. And it calculates, this is my total stock cost of goods, my total revenue. This is my gross profit. Really important to understand that, because what you pay for the product is a really big deal, because you don't run the business on revenue. Everybody's like, whoo, I generated 20 grand this month. Who cares? You paid $11,000 to get the product that you have. You're really only running the company on 9 grand. So you've got to sort of keep that in mind. The sheet always also rolls over wages and it adds overhead. And overhead is not going to include benefits. It's only going to include like your Social Security contribution, your what you got to pay for workers' comp, and there's a bunch of other miscellaneous expenses that a business has to pay. So it's about 30% for overhead, automatically plugged in there. You'll notice that there is stuff in blue and there's stuff in a box. So now we got to go in and say, okay, are we going to need office stuff, paper, that sort of stuff, right? So maybe we got a couple $100 in paper. Are you going to be paying rent or running this out of your garage? If you're going to have to go rent a storage place, a little warehouse, whatever, maybe you're going to need to, have a little place where you can go work, right? Are you going to be driving around a little bit? Maybe it's $250. You're going to spend money on marketing? Yeah, maybe $500 because you're not going to be spending a ton. Is there going to be utilities in the place that you rent? Yeah, there is. Probably about 20% of the cost of the rent. So let's put $300. You can have a phone. Yeah, you got your phone. Legal. Everybody needs to have some legal, and everybody needs to have some accounting. And the reason is that this is America. You may get sued, so you're going to need to have an accountant or a lawyer that you can sort of have on retainer that can advise you, right? Now, you're going to need accounting expertise because you're not going to want to try to QuickBook this on your own. You might be able to set this up the first couple months. After that, your job is to grow sales. Your job is not to be futzing around with accounting. It's just not. Liability insurance, let's assume it's going to be a couple $100 a month. It might be a little bit less, we'll have to see, etc. What are some of the other miscellaneous expenses? And then once again, man, you got to fill in all these numbers. And you can't just put in once. Some people send it to me and they fill it in once, assuming that it's somehow going to autofill all the way across. It doesn't. Why doesn't it is a good question. The reason is that your numbers may change. So let's say, for example, this is a calendar year, this is January, this is December. Well, you know what? You may spend a ton more money on marketing. I'm going to cheat again. You may spend a ton more money on marketing starting in September. And so we want to be able to show that marketing spend doubling, right? Tripling, right? Because now we want quadrupling. This is it. This is where we make our money. And we want to make sure that we've got our money, right, to go do this. Now, you'll notice there's a number here, startup costs. This number automatically gets pulled over from here. So what you do here automatically rolls over to the operating expense. Pretty straightforward, okay? So now this shows you what is my total expense per month. So you'll notice $10,450. My gross margin is 9,000, which means that I am operating at a loss every single month. This will show you the monthly, and this will show you the cumulative. And now let's roll over. We could do this again. Let's assume sales or whatever expenses are going to increase by 10%. They're going to increase by 10%. Now we can begin to see, okay, this doesn't look great. And I'm going to be losing a chunk of dough. I'm going to be losing less money next year because I don't have startup costs, right? And then if you hit the final tab, it gives you a pro forma. Revenue minus cost of goods equals gross margin minus expenses. And you see, you lose 50 grand your first year, you lose 39 and 38, right? And at this pace, it would take you about 38 years before you break even. So this is where you then go back, you measure, you would look and say, maybe my volumes are off, or maybe my wages are too high, or you don't necessarily need to make money your first year. You just sort of need to be mindful of the fact that what is the outcome of this? Maybe it's the first year, it just doesn't work out. But the second year, you're like, maybe we get to income variables, and now instead of growing by 10%, you grow by 50%. And the year after that, you grow by 75%, right? What does that do? That changes everything, right? You almost break even year two, and then you make money in year three. The key is for you to not just throw up some numbers that sound good, but for you to actually take the time and be like, yeah, these seem like realistic numbers to me. These numbers are doable. And at the end of the day, this isn't about passing the class. This is about learning a process so that in the future you don't waste your time. I do this first, right? My team, we go from crazy idea to this. I don't even waste time clarifying the idea. I don't waste time doing market research. I go right to the budget and I try to figure, does this thing make money or not? And if I can get the back of napkin, rough and ugly sheet to make money, then I will go off and we will go do the rest of the work. And the reason I don't have you do that is because understanding how to, do that, the first 100 words, and then understanding how to do the market research is critical if you want to be able to fill this in with any uh, knowledge whatsoever. Otherwise, you're just sort of pulling numbers out of the air. I can pull numbers out of the air because I've been doing this for so long. But for most people, you need to have gone through the process that we've gone through in order to get to the point where you can fill in this sheet. So I hope this was helpful. Hope it wasn't too confusing. If it is, send me a quick note and I will put out another video. This is a new sheet. The one that I'd been using before was 15 years old, and this is updated. And I hope it is a little bit easier to use. Peace.